Hello, this is Ms. Roberts here, and today we're going to talk about public speaking and confidence. One of the number one concerns that students have in regards to taking this class is, how do I overcome my speech anxiety? How can I not be so scared to talk in front of an audience or in front of a camera? Well, in this chapter, we're going to explore what speech anxiety is and some of the ways that we can overcome it. Let's begin. So how do we speak with confidence? We're going to explore the reasons and the processes involved in nervousness about public speaking and talk about effective strategies to build public speaking confidence. Now, public speaking anxiety can come in many forms and to many degrees. Now, although I can't promise that this chapter or this course will completely eliminate public speaking anxiety, with these tools, I can assure you that with practice and using the tools in the chapter, you will be better equipped to manage public speaking anxiety. So, for example, we have trait and state anxiety. For instance, you might have a more nervous personality, or you might be in a state where other factors in your life causes you a little bit of anxiety. So when confronted with public speaking, you may add on to it. Or you might, in this context, almost like a phobia, such as a phobia of heights or a phobia of spiders, people might just have a phobia of public speaking. In addition to general anxiety, we might have an anxiety about humiliation and failure. For instance, not only are you speaking to me, but you're speaking amongst your peers, your classmates. So sometimes that might make us a little bit nervous. Honestly, as your teacher, sometimes on the first day, I'm a little bit nervous. New class, new students. Will my students connect with me the way I want to connect with them? Will they like me? Will they like the course? So even as an instructor who teaches public speaking, I have some anxieties about public speaking and the course itself, if that makes sense. So I'm not excluded in this phenomenon. So we fear humiliation and failure, but instead of having that basic fear control you, you can use that to your advantage. So you can say, for instance, be more mindful about preparation and practice to help overcome that anxiety. We might be concerned about preparation and performance because this class has both written and spoken because this class has a both written and spoken component. See, just gotta recover. Then we might be concerned, hey, am I going to do well scores-wise on both components? We might have a personal insecurity about how we look or how do we speak in front of people, accents, stutters, just like I demonstrated just now. We might have little personal insecurities that might impede on us connecting to the audience. So if we relax on those insecurities and control the controllables and sort of let go of the uncontrollables, we should be okay. Last but certainly not least, perfectionism. So there are people and students and teachers who feel that their work must be completely 100% perfect before they're able to perform or they're able to present it. Now, of course, having good quality work is important, and building upon the lessons that we teach you in class is important. But no, just like human nature, public speaking is not a perfect process. It's okay to have flaws. It's okay to show that you're human, to laugh at your mistakes like I did just now. It's okay if you let go of the need to be a perfect public speaker. You can be a more personable and relaxed and proficient public speaker. It sounds contradictory, but don't let perfectionism or insecurities or fear of failure or performance anxiety prevent you from enjoying the process. So we might be more genetically predisposed to being more on the anxious side. And that's okay. We can't change our biology, but we can change our reaction to anxiety and fear. So focus on enhancing your skills and having fun with the process. So when we talk about anxiety and biology and anxiety, what we're basically experiencing is the fight or flight response. If you've taken other biology classes or psychology classes, you may have heard this term before. When we're scared, when we're frightened, we might have two responses: to jump and run away, or to fight, put up our dukes. It's just something that our ancestors have used to survive throughout life, right? So we're not in the caveman days. How does fight or flight affect us today? Well, that same physiological response to fear and anxiety still exists regardless of the context. So when you feel those butterflies in your stomach, when you feel that adrenaline, when you feel that nervousness, it's that residual fight or flight mechanisms that we all have biologically to survive. It's just that we have to channel that into regular public speaking context. So how can we make this fight or flight response, or how can we make anxiety work for you? Here's some ways you can do so. We can realize that we're going to feel more nervous than we actually look. Occasionally after a speech, I have students apologize to me for being nervous. First off, no need to apologize. You're not going to be marked down for feeling nervous or anxious. It's how you handle that and how it affects your performance that might play a role. But you never have to apologize to me as the instructor for you feeling nervous. But when students apologize to me, I look at them and tell them, I didn't know it's a thing. Now, unless someone's visibly shaken or visibly sweaty, I don't know what's going on with you internally at all. So you might not look as nervous as you think you do. You can't make anxiety go away. However, you can do breathing exercises. You can prepare well in advance. Ask me questions. And learn how to manage it and use that extra energy to convey enthusiasm in your presentation. So when you rename the anxiety, you can tame it. So for instance, you can call it, you can call it my lion. I have to tame the lion, whatever you want to call it. But with these 3 examples, you can control your anxiety. So apprehension and fear follows a predictive pattern. For instance, you might feel really nervous at the very beginning, but as you go on in your speech, that level of nervousness falls. If you continue with practicing public speaking and speaking in public more often, then that anxiety and that fear lessens as well. The more preparation you do, the lower that speech anxiety. So as you see in the chart here, the anxiety might be a little bit lower and get higher as you are given a speech assignment. You might use between this time and this time to prepare, and if so, you might be a little bit nervous if it's your first time speaking in public, but then as you continue on with the speech, the anxiety goes down, and this might be a little bit lower, more and more times you do and perform speeches. So here are some other ways that you can build your confidence. For instance, know your audience. More than likely, your audience will be me and your other students. So if this is an online course, you might have peer reviews where you will look at other student speeches and give your feedback. Or if it's a face-to-face course, you might either be in front of an audience and perform a speech, so you're able to get that feedback with the audience instantaneously. So with that being said, you have to, as much as you can, if you have time to research, you can do so. If you don't, you have to, in general, think about the needs, goals, and hopes of your audience. So since we're college students, you have to think about it in that lens, because that's who you're going to talk to. And say if you're doing this for a position, or a job, then you have to adjust those expectations and adjust the needs of that audience. Different audiences have different needs. Procrastination is a biggie. You don't want to procrastinate preparing the speech. Speech preparation is a longer process than the actual speech itself. So for instance, you have to figure out what topic you want to do. If the assignment requires, you have to do research and incorporate multiple sources, create an outline, perform and practice that outline, make tweaks in delivery, practice delivery, create your note cards or speaking outlines, and then practice some more. And then it's ready for prime time. So if you procrastinate preparing for this process, you might not perform as well as you hope, and your anxiety might go up because of it. When we do talk about the informative speech, one of the tips I give is talk about something that you're passionate about and or familiar with. Because the informative speech requires that you pick the topic, and almost any topic will do, it presents what we call the paradox of choice. The more choices we have, the harder time we have coming to a decision. So if the openness of the topic hinders you to choosing a topic in general, you can think about something that you're passionate and familiar with and start from there. But we'll talk more about that when we talk about the informative speech. You also want to prepare, conduct research with credible sources, and practice. In addition to practicing the actual content of the speech, you'll want to also practice verbal citations. For instance, when you talk about another author's idea or a stat or a fact, you do want to use transition words such as according to, such and such says, the specific researcher states. You want to specify where it came from and then weave that into your speech practice. You want to use the outlines. I will provide outline templates and formats for you, so make sure to adhere to those guidelines as much as possible to earn a good grade. You also want to know your introduction and conclusion. The introduction is the beginning of your speech and the conclusion is the end of your speech. And the first things you will say in your introduction will be the attention getter, and some of the last things you would say in your conclusion and your speech as a whole is your final thought and statement. So you want to know your speech inside and out, from the attention getter to the final statement. And you can refer to the outlines for reference of what that looks like. So you want to mimic the conditions of the speech itself, whether it be face-to-face or being filmed. So if you plan to stand up in a face-to-face course, go ahead and stand up, speak loudly. You can either record yourself and play it back to yourself as well. If this is being delivered online, you can sit down, make sure you adjust your camera, make sure you're looking in the camera, make sure that your equipment picking up your voice loud enough, And you can also record and play it back to yourself. That's some of the things that I did when I first started this video series. I had to make sure that I'm loud, that I'm visible, and that I'm looking into the camera as best as I can. You also want to do slow, deep breaths. For instance, it helps with both calming the nerves and with the speech rate. Speech rate is how fast you talk and how slow you talk. One of my personal Achilles heels as a public speaker, a public speaking teacher, and as a human being is that I like to talk really fast. So I have to be aware and cognizant of, I'm speaking a little bit faster. Taking slow, deep breaths helps me slow down my speech, calm me down, and have that speech rate reset. And you can channel your nervous energy, being calm and being enthusiastic when you speak in front of the class and or in front of the camera. So before you practice, or maybe a little bit before a class, take a walk. Just try to get that nervous energy out. I don't know how well this works, but the book says you can squeeze your chair as well beforehand. Tend to relax your muscles a little bit. Deep breaths. And especially if you're wearing closed-toe shoes, wiggle your toes, cross your legs while you wait for the next speaker to speak. Now, if you're at home and this is pre-recorded, you can also take a deep breath, maybe do a little bit of exercise before jumping into the camera, doing multiple takes, although you will be completing the speech in one take. To submit to me, you can do practice takes with yourself and then start the recording. But you can channel that kinetic energy with movement, and it can help relax you as well. And remember to keep breathing. Next, you want to visualize your success. So, for example, if you're at a job interview, you might picture yourself speaking to your future employers. You might have a script of questions you have in your head, and you're visualizing yourself in this exchange with your interviewers, your future employers, and it helps you practice how to respond to certain questions, and it kind of puts you in that circumstance or in that context, so when you're actually in it, you don't feel as startled or you don't feel as nervous. You can also use the same idea with speaking in public. So if you're in face-to-face, visualize yourself doing well, visualize the audience smiling back at you, visualizing me smiling back at you, and just visualizing yourself getting an A in the class, getting an A on the assignment. Say, for instance, I've given you feedback in the previous assignment. You implemented that feedback, so just visualize yourself doing well, visualize the applause, and it can help give yourself mentally prepared for what you have to do. For an online class, you can also visualize your success. Visualize those good comments online. You can technically play back your speech. So if you see an improvement, give yourself a pat on the back. You can technically, literally visualize your success within the use of technology. You can also give yourself a mental pep talk. I can do this. I can do this. I've done this before. I am intelligent, so I can implement feedback. If I do receive feedback that I don't like, I can always have a conversation with the instructor. That's me. Or I can implement it and do better. I'm in here to learn. I'm not in here for perfection, but I'm in here to grow as a public speaker. When you counteract those negative thoughts with positive thoughts, it can help calm you down and help you do better. Focus on the message, so focus on what you have to do in regards to saying the outline, and you can use your speaking outline and note cards as support. Be audience-centered. Make sure to create a speech that's beneficial to your audience. And more than likely, especially since your class is in the same boat, especially when you're doing face-to-face instruction, they're in the same boat, so they're going to probably give you more positive feedback because they will want you to do the same thing for them. So be audience-centered, smile, and you will get that support right back. If you have other opportunities to speak in public, why not? It might not be as high stakes as a course or public speaking for a job, but you might use this time to practice and build your public speaking skills. And focus on your accomplishment, not your fear. So for example, you made it. You're in class. You did it. You're doing well. That visualization section that we just talked about. So think about how you're doing well and use that to build your confidence. Okay, so this is chapter 2, Building Confidence in Public Speaking. I hope when reading this chapter, going along with me, and just practicing more in general, I hope you're able to build confidence as time goes on. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be glad to give you some additional tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. But I know you guys are going to do well. I have confidence you guys are going to do well. I look forward to hearing more of your speeches. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.